This is Twit.
So, David, we need to talk. And it's a good talk. It's not a bad talk. I've been using the stand down. I've been using the S10. I'm going to actually be recording my review for Hands on Tech here on the Twit Network. I think it's going to post later this week, but I record my review tomorrow. This is the middle of the road S10. Although middle of the road makes it sound like it's like inferior. It's actually really great. You posted a review just last week of the S10e, which is like the, I don't know, does the E stand for entry level as far as the S10s are concerned? What did you think about the phone?
Exceptionally economy efficient. I don't really know what it stands for. Also, I hope you call Hands on Tech hot. Because that's great. Fantastic. I'm so glad to know that. Absolutely.
Twit.tv/HOT will take you to Hands on Tech. It was just one of those weird things that came together, and it made a whole lot of sense.
What a coincidence.
Yeah, isn't that strange? So the S10e, you made the claim that this, I mean, it's right there in the headline, the best Android phone for the money and for most people. That's a lot to say about a phone that I think Samsung in the event really kind of downplayed a little bit compared to what we're used to, which is here's the S10 Plus, the biggest, baddest, most advanced phone we have at this very moment in time. Obviously, this is a little bit less spec'd in certain areas, but what makes you say that this is the best phone for its money, its class?
Well, I think you're right that the laser and fog show had really died down by the time Samsung got to the S10e, but I do think it was the encore performance that everybody wanted, which is just all the Samsung you know and love, but in a more approachable and kind of, I would say, almost nostalgic package. You know, back when Samsung phones cost like, $700-ish bucks, and that was the best Samsung phone you could buy.
Yeah.
So one of the kind of fun things that I did to like kind of benchmark the S10e, where it sits historically in Samsung's larger lineup. You probably wouldn't believe this, but the S10e is basically the same size, thickness, and weight as a Galaxy S5. It's basically the same phone as a physical object. It's slightly wider, I think. And it's just a tear bigger than a Galaxy S4, and these are pretty old phones.
Yeah.
So this is a form factor that I think people were pretty happy with in the S4 and S5. The S5 in particular was like Samsung's culmination of their plastic phone series. It was the Band-Aid one, if you need to kind of remember. It had the Band-Aid texture on the back.
Thank you.
Yeah,
that brings it back.
That was the S5. And I think people really liked that. And I thought a lot of people felt that's the right size phone for me. It's not iPhone SE tiny, but it's not huge. But that said, this packs a way bigger battery and a way bigger screen in terms of actual like screen area. And obviously, it's a completely modern phone. And the things you give up for the S10e are really obvious and should be clear to most people. You give up the in-display fingerprint scanner, and it's a smaller battery. That's really it. The rear-facing camera stuff, like you don't get a telephoto lens, you don't want it anyway. Samsung's telephoto lens sucks. And the wide-angle camera is the one you want, and the S10e has that. That is the secondary camera of use. The S10 Plus's second front-facing camera doesn't do anything. You can't actually take pictures with it. It's just for portrait effect stuff. So you're not losing anything with that. You still get all the portrait effect modes. They're just not using two cameras. And like if somebody tries to tell you, oh, it's only got a 1080p screen, you're not going to notice. The pixels per inch on the S10e, it's too dense for you to even tell. And also the S10 and S10 Plus ship running 1080p out of the box. You have to manually switch them to Quad HD if you want to use it. So I think the one drawback to the S10e, if you really want the long battery life, this phone will let you down. That said, the battery life is not bad. The battery life's probably a good 20, maybe 30% better than the small Pixel 3. So it's still pretty good. It's just that the S10 Plus has such a huge battery this year that it's 4,100 milliamp hours in the S10 Plus. That phone goes and goes and goes and goes and goes. I don't know about the regular S10, but it's a much smaller battery in that. I believe 3,400 milliamp hours, and the S10e is 3,100, I think. So it doesn't last as long, but you get everything else basically. And I think for most people, that's why it makes the most sense.
And I'm sorry, Ron, go.
I was just going to say, I think that's a compelling argument. But David, you say that it's the best Android phone for the money, and for most people, does most people equate to a $700 phone? Like that's where I get hung up. Is it's still a $700 phone, and so if you're going to spend $200 or $300 more, you get a better battery, you get you get all those things that you're saying that are taking it away, that take away from it.
No, I think you're right there. I think if you want to spend $1,000 on a phone, the S10 Plus is perfectly defensible, and you get that huge battery life boost and a much bigger screen. So if you want those things, yeah, I definitely say the S10 Plus, totally worth it if those are big value props, like value adds for you. I would say the regular S10 is the one that's kind of in no man's land. I don't see any reason to recommend it. The S10e you should get, the S10 Plus you should get. They serve two different audiences. The regular S10, I don't know who that serves. I've seen people buying it, but I'm not sure who that's for.
I think it serves people who want more than the S10e, but don't want the real estate of the S10 Plus, right? They don't want the biggest phone, you know?
Right, and I think to speak to your point, David, like the S10, like I've been using it for the past week and a half almost, and I actually really like it a lot, but I haven't used the S10e to compare it to know, well, maybe that's good enough. And maybe some of these, some of the, like the size improvement, that's going to be highly personal, whether someone wants a slightly larger phone. The in-display fingerprint sensor, I've been really kind of disappointed with for the most part. It's just not nearly as accurate as I want it to be. It takes me 2 or 3 tries all the time. So having the hardware fingerprint sensor in the side of the S10e, in my mind, strangely, kind of seems like a benefit over what you get in the S10. I think there's a perception of the fact that because this sits in the middle and it's better than the air quotes budget S10, that's it, but not nearly as ginormous as the S10 Plus. That's where the S10 falls. That's where people decide to go with the S10. But
no, you're definitely right about that, and the way way people think about it, especially Samsung phones. The thing is, they're all wrong. So the S10.
This is why we bring you on, David.
Is bar none the reason to get it, because the fingerprint scanner actually works.
Yeah.
So that is really I don't like to use this word, the trump card for the S10e is definitely that fingerprint scanner. It is so much better to use. As long as you're using your phone with your right hand on lock, it's very easy, very fast, very reliable. And that is, aside from the battery life, like there is not a lot that makes you want to go back to the S10 Plus. Bigger screen and the battery life are the really only the real reasons. And I loathe the fingerprint scanner on the S10 Plus. It's just bad. And I think you accept that as part of the experience of owning the S10 or S10 Plus. But the S10e, no compromises. The fingerprint scanner works great. And it's exactly where you expect it to be every time you touch it.
And you don't miss the dual front-facing cameras that you don't have on the E or the regular?
No, those don't do anything. So if you're doing like portrait effect shots, the background blurring, that's what the second one's for. It does not do anything photographically. It is 100% for post-processing for those portrait effect shots. So I really don't think it does anything. You still have the wide angle quote mode on the S10e and S10 on the front-facing camera.
Yep, and they work well. Yeah, I mean, I suppose you have to ask yourself, how important is that bokeh effect to you? And I mean,
you still get to use it. You still get to use it.
That's the thing. Yes, exactly. It's still there. It's just, do you want it to be a little bit better or there? And I would say probably most people would not care that much.
Yeah,
that's one of those features that you use sometimes, not always, and maybe you don't even think about it at all.
If I may briefly just switch to the S10 Plus, which, because my title of that review got so many people to click on it. Sorry. I love the S10 Plus. It's the phone I want to use every day. The battery life is exceptional. The screen is so big. It's so pretty. Everything about it except the on-screen fingerprint scanner. And then there's one little thing that does not affect everybody, but it affects me very badly. The Edge cell service on it is not good. I miss half of my phone calls and text messages on this phone in my apartment. It's really bad. I had to stop using it. It got to the point where I'm like, I actually need to be able to get phone calls. Don't have that problem on the S10e.
Interesting.
So there's something really weird going on. It does not affect everybody, to be clear about this. I'm on AT&T, and in my area, it's band 12 LTE. and I had the same problem on T-Mobile and AT&T. Just terrible Band 12 reception. I know Samsung's planning to release a patch specifically for Sprint phones because Sprint customers have been having a terrible time on the S10 Plus too in certain edge case scenarios. I always have to kind of course, parentheses that. But if you're in an area with poor AT&T or T-Mobile reception, I don't know if I'd recommend the S10 Plus very much.
Interesting. And this is a problem that Samsung knows about and like you said, is actively like planning on rolling out a patch, right?
Sprint, they're aware of it. Okay. AT&T and T-Mobile, I don't know what they're aware of. And I did side-by-side testing, measuring reception and everything. The S10 Plus gets way worse signal for me than the S10e or my Pixel 3 XL.
Interesting. So it went into your drawer and then it came back out. Your Pixel.
I've just been using the S10e.
Oh, okay. Now you're on the S10. Hey, and I mean that speaks volumes about the capability of what many people would largely throw away immediately for the fact that, oh, well, it's the lowest price of the flagship, so of course I don't want it. You're happy to use that in its place.
Yeah.
There we go. That
aside
says
from
something.
Battery life is whatever, but otherwise it's fantastic.
Interesting. All right. Cool. Well, obviously, people can dive deep into your reviews of the S10e and the S10 Plus by going to AndroidPolice.com. Search for David's reviews there. They're easy to find. Much of tonight's rundown, by the way, is filled with Android Police stories. So if you can't find them on the site, you can always go to twit.tv/AAA where the show notes for tonight's episodes are and link to it directly.
Hey Jason, this is what we call in the comic book world a crossover.
A crossover.
This is the All About Android Police crossover event.
All About Android Police.
There it is.
There we go.
Hey, I'm gonna actually trademark that. Just be right back.
No, too late. It's the title.
I registered the domain on Hover already, so there you go.